What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down some very important developments in the charts as we're seeing some new developments from analysts, not to mention some new changes going on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just about 9 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So, as far as NIO goes, we did form a bullish divergence right here on the chart. And we're doing a good job at holding up, but we're going to be watching the CR50 EMA at 4.79 to see if we break this or not. If we do break this, I think we could attempt to fill this gap up to about 5.05. If we fail to do so, we're going to likely remain range bound. So, as of right now, it's looking like NIO is trying to base at this 4.3 area, and we're doing a good job so far. This could signify an attempt to push a little bit higher if we break resistance. I think the share price is doing a good job. So I'm going to talk more about this in just a couple of minutes, but just know a couple of things. As far as NIO goes, they gave us their earnings, and earnings were not that great in my personal opinion. I would say that their numbers were a little bit lackluster when it comes to revenue and such. However, their guidance was pretty strong for what they're expecting for deliveries, as they're expecting over 75 plus thousand deliveries in total for Q4. And hopefully we see an improvement in their margins. As time goes on, they're going to be expanding their business with their new sub brands. And I think that's going to be very bullish as well. However, I also want to call out the fact that we need to see their margins improve as well. That's going to be a very, very big component to see their numbers go up. And that's what we're going to be watching for as time goes on. As far as some news goes, we did see Maguire downgrade NIO to neutral from outperform, and they hacked their price target by about 27% after they think that the fourth quarter guide is not as strong because of slowing demand. So now they are anticipating some more downside, and they're saying that they cut their price target to about $4.80 from $6.60 before. A little bit unfortunate news, but it wasn't really enough to affect NIO too much. This news did come out earlier today, so we'll see what kind of effect that has on the share price. 54 million was the volume, not too far from average. And Maguire, once again, has a different view. They downgraded NIO from an outperform rating to a neutral rating, unfortunately. And that is because of the fact that they believed earnings was not that great. The price price ratio is very low because NIO is very lackluster compared to what it was like before. We tend to see more volatility at 10 a.m. and also around the 2 p.m. period. And besides that, there's not really much else that's coming on, at least as far as this is moving. So what do we see for the broader markets? Just know that we had a green day for most sectors. We did see most of them at Mag 7 stocks a little bit in the red, like Tesla, Google, Microsoft, and Apple. But most other stocks were kind of flat and green. So that's what helped the market hold up quite well, as there's a lot of buyers that are still present. Tomorrow is going to be Friday, November 22nd, 2024. Please know that 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the S&P Global Composite PMI, Manufacturing and Services PMI data. Then we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report also coming out at 10 o'clock a.m. So I'll be watching to see how this ends up looking. For tomorrow, just know that we have 589 at max pain and a 1.28 puts to call ratio. Also know that we have over 300 plus thousand of these calls expiring and over 400,000 plus puts expiring. So not as many as we typically see. There are going to be a lot more options expirations next week. So I'll be waiting for that. But for the time being, max pain's at 589. So we'll see what the market makers try to pull. There is a very common pattern in the market where we kind of sell off in the mornings, then we get bought back up and push at the end of the day. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. There are some tensions rising between Ukraine and Russia, causing oil to go up just a bit. Not affecting the market as much, so we'll see if anything happens involving that. But so far, it's not affecting the market too much. For earnings, we had Nvda and NIO announcing earnings. Nvda basically dumped after earnings came out, only to get bought back up today. So it's not a lot of volatility, but overall, the buyers did try to push it back into the green. Intuit also had its earnings today. Unfortunately, the share price is down because of the fact that they had to cut their guidance, which was not very strong. But Ross had pretty decent looking earnings. So earnings were so overall, but they had strong guidance. You guys can see it right over here. That's 2.6% above the consensus estimates. So not bad. And that's why the share price is once again up for Ross. So we had mixed earnings, at least for today. Besides that, that's all I have for the markets. So what do I see for NIO for tomorrow? If we lose 4.6, we're looking for a dip to about 4.4. If we break 4.79, we're looking for a push up higher. I presume tomorrow morning is going to be dipping a little bit, but hopefully we see some buyers defend it at 4.7. If we break that 4.79 area, we're looking for a bigger push. And I think we're going to kind of dip a bit before trying to push higher. And we'll see if we break 4.79 or not. If we do break it, we're looking for a pump. So I'll be watching that very closely. As far as SPY goes, we have rising wedge-like structure. We're forming a nice accumulation. I just want to say that the 4-hour does have a nice divergence that's forming. We could be dipping closer to where this 20 EMA happens to be. There might be a small dip tomorrow morning on SPY. As long as you hold this support, we could attempt to kind of bounce off that 590 area. So look for a small dip and a bounce. Every time this thing is dipping, we're just bouncing, dipping and bouncing, dipping and bouncing. So look for a small dip and a bounce again, and this may continue to squeeze higher for the 595 targets. I think that we might see a small dip initially before we see some buyers step in. So give this the time it needs as time goes on. If SPY does end up losing support, though, at 590, we're looking for 588. I don't think we're going to be dumping that hard. I think there's going to be a small dip in the bounce is the most likely possibility, and they may try to keep the market elevated because of max pain. ES is trying to push past 59.80. If we break this, we're looking for 6,000 as our targets. We might be dipping closer to where this previous resistance becoming support is at around 59.50. So look for a small dip before it tries to bounce, and then if that breaks out, we're looking for 6,000 as our target. So look for a dip and a bounce as the most likely possibilities. For other factors out there, we have Nvda. Nvidia is very mixed right now. It got this little dip after earnings. It pumped up to about 152, then it dumped back down. So it broke all-time highs and came back down. Then we managed to push at the end of the day, closing kind of flat. So I think that we just continue to consolidate on Nvidia. Look for a dip tomorrow morning to about 144 or below. Then it's going to get bought back up and just continue to trade sideways as the most likely possibility. Bitcoin should be hitting 100,000 very soon. So I anticipate more upside for Bitcoin. Other tickers like Tesla are very flat. Tesla is getting ready for a massive move, but for the time being, it's just trading sideways. If we lose 336, we're looking for 330, and if we break past 346 to 348, we remain more bullish. Otherwise, we're just stuck within that range, and I think that's all Tesla is doing. For NQ, we're trying to push here. We might be dipping closer to about the 20,750 area. If we bounce off that, we could be looking for a push back up to 20,900. Otherwise, I just think we're range bound. So look for a small dip and a bounce as the most likely possibilities. We want to see if we could break past 21,000. So see if we get that dip and bounce and see what happens after that. For the QQQ, we could be dipping back down towards 503.5 or 503 flats, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. We have this imbalance up here around this 508 area and a gap to fill. So I am hoping the QQQ tries to fill that gap. It is a little bit choppy approaching that area. And it looks like it's going to dip a little bit right here towards 503. Hopefully, if we get bought back up, we break the high of the day at 506. We're looking for an attempt to get up to 508 to fill that gap. We're very close to doing so. So I would like to see us kind of dip and then bounce to fill that gap. Then we'll see if we get a rejection after that. So we'll see how this ends up moving. Aapl might dip a little bit back down towards 227. We'll see if we get a bounce off that. If we do bounce, we could be looking for 230. If not, we could be dipping. So look for a dip and a bounce, and we'll see what happens after that. For Netflix, we're looking for essentially 900 as our potential target. We'll see if we break 900 or not, but just know that we're going to be very patient nonetheless. For MSTR, we basically have this big red candlestick right over here, which is a bearish engulfing candle. This could lead to more downsides. So it's looking a little bit weaker now after so much upside. We want to see it reclaim 400. If it does not do that, we could be on our way back down towards 375, followed by this gap fill down here around the 340 area. So there might be some more downside coming for this. The IWM looks more bullish. We're going to be looking for an imbalance for 236 very soon. As long as you don't lose 232, I do favor upside. For others out there, we have, let me just double check, Coin. Coin might be on its way down a little bit as you look a little bit weak on the daily. The 4-hour is also showing some weakness. We're going to be looking at a test of 288 tomorrow. If this holds, it could try to bounce back up to 309. But if 288 breaks, we're looking for a dip back down towards 277. So keep that in mind. Amazon's rejecting here. We could be dipping a little bit lower. If we don't reclaim 200, this might actually slow down a little bit. It's about 196, so just keep that in mind. Meta is on a bit of a downtrend, it's making lower highs here, so I'm going to be paying attention to this resistance now. You could draw it out just like this. This would be our next resistance zone. We'll have to see if Meta reclaims this or not. I believe that Meta will attempt to push up towards these EMAs, so basically it tries to make its way up towards 563, then eventually 570, then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. But I think it's going to attempt to push a bit, and it might be making a lower high before we see anything else. Microsoft's on a bit of a downtrend here. We'll have to see if we break 416 or not. Otherwise, we could be dipping a little bit lower for about that 410 target. So we might be dipping to about 410 before we try to bounce, so just keep that in mind. And then as far as Google goes, I also noticed that Google is in a very, very interesting phase where we dipped quite a bit already. We're going to be watching to see if we try to reclaim 170, if we get a rejection or not. So I think we could retest 170. We'll see if we reject. So give this the time that it needs. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of your day. As far as NIO goes, I see some upside potential in the chart, so we'll give this the time it needs, and we'll see if we break past 4.79 or not to start pushing higher. I anticipate the market's going to dip a little bit tomorrow morning, so be prepared for a small dip before we start to get bought back up most likely. But if we don't hold key supports, don't forget we have a max pain that's below where we currently are. As of right now, every time the market's dipped, we got bought back up, so there's a good chance we might continue that trend. That seems very probable for now, so I thank you for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and peace out.